In the underworld of New York, loyalty is a currency more valuable than gold, and betrayal is the only crime punishable by death. Dante Moretti thought he was sitting down to an engagement dinner with the love of his life. He didn't know he was sitting on a landmine. He had the power, the money, and the guns, but he was blind. It took a trembling waitress named Ilara to see the knife hidden behind a smile. 1 note. 7 words. That was all it took to turn a romantic evening into a bloodbath. This is the story of how a spilled glass of wine toppled an empire. The air inside Le Veau d'Or smelled of truffle oil, aged mahogany, and fear. It was the kind of establishment where the menu didn't list prices, and the shadows in the corner booths held secrets worth millions. Dante Moretti sat at the center table, the undisputed king of the room. At 34, he carried the weight of the Moretti crime family with a deceptive ease. He wore a midnight blue bespoke suit cut to hide the shoulder holster, and his eyes, usually sharp enough to spot a Fed in a crowded subway, were currently softened by the woman sitting across from him. Vanessa Sterling. She was the picture of elegance, her blonde hair cascading over shoulders that shimmered with diamond dust. She was the daughter of a rival syndicate, a union meant to bring peace to the 5 boroughs. Tonight was the night they were to announce the wedding date. "You seem distracted, my love." Dante said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the table. He reached out, covering her hand with his. His ring, a heavy gold signet, clinked against her glass. Vanessa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her gaze flickered toward the kitchen doors for a fraction of a second. "Just nerves, Dante. It's a big night. The merger. It changes everything." "It ends the war," Dante corrected her gently. "It brings peace." Watching them from the service station was Ilara Vance. Ilara was invisible. It was her greatest skill. She was 24, with dark hair, pulled back into a severe bun, and a uniform that hung loosely on her tired frame. She had been working at Le Veau d'Or for 6 months, keeping her head down, sending cash back to her sick brother in Ohio, and pretending she didn't understand the Italian whispered by the men in the back room. But Ilara understood more than just Italian. She understood body language. She understood predator dynamics. And she knew that a woman in love didn't check her watch 3 times in 5 minutes. A woman in love didn't tap her left foot rhythmically against the table leg, a signal Ilara had seen, used by spotters in the neighborhood she grew up in. Ilara adjusted the tray of vintage Pinot Noir. Her hands were shaking. She shouldn't get involved. The golden rule of the service industry in a mob front. See nothing, hear nothing, live long. But 10 minutes ago, while restocking napkins in the private hallway near the restrooms, she had heard Vanessa. The fiancé wasn't speaking to her mother. She was on a burner phone, her voice a hiss of venom. "He's here. No, he suspects nothing. Do it after the toast. I want to see the light go out of his eyes before you take the territory." 9:00 p.m. Don't miss Lorenzo. 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 The Viper. Ricci, the man who had sworn to wipe the Moretti bloodline off the map. Ilara looked at the clock on the wall. 8:52 p.m. She had 8 minutes. If she did nothing, the man at table 4 would be dead. If she did something, she might be dead. But looking at Dante, a man who had tipped her $100 last week, just because she looked exhausted, she felt a knot of nausea. He wasn't a saint, but he was being slaughtered like a pig. She grabbed a receipt pad. Her pen hovered. She couldn't speak to him. His guards, 2 mountains of muscle named Rocco and Silas, stood 6 feet away. She needed a reason to get close. A mistake. She scrawled the message, her handwriting jagged with adrenaline. "Your fiancé set a trap." Leave now. She folded the paper into a tight square and palmed it. She picked up the crystal water pitcher. Showtime. Ilara walked toward the table. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. 8:54 p.m. More water, sir, ma'am, Ilara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Vanessa waved a dismissive hand. We're fine, go away. Dante looked up, offering a polite, charming smile. Actually, I'll take a glass. Ilara moved in. As she poured, she let her elbow jerk. It was a calculated clumsiness. The heavy crystal pitcher clipped the side of Dante's wine glass. Clang. Red wine exploded across the white tablecloth, splashing onto Dante's expensive cuff. You idiot! Vanessa shrieked, jumping up, seizing the opportunity to create chaos. Look what you did. The guards, Rocco and Silas, stepped forward instantly, hands reaching inside their jackets. Dante raised a hand to stop them. He looked at the spreading stain, then up at Ilara. He saw the terror in her eyes. It wasn't the terror of a waitress who had spilled wine. It was the terror of a witness. I am so sorry, sir. Please let me clean it, Ilara stammered, grabbing a handful of napkins to dab at his sleeve. In the flurry of white linen, she pressed the folded note into his wet palm. She squeezed his hand hard, a violation of protocol so severe it stunned him. Please, she whispered, her eyes locking onto his. Forgive the mistake. Dante froze. He felt the paper. He looked at the girl. He saw the sweat on her brow, the desperate urgency in her pupils. He was a man of instinct. His gut screamed that this wasn't an accident. He closed his fist over the paper. It's fine, Dante said, his voice changing. The warmth evaporated, replaced by cold steel. Accidents happen. Go. Ilara backed away, bowing her head, retreating to the kitchen. Dante kept his hand under the table and unfolded the damp paper. He glanced down. Your fiancé set a trap. Leave now. 8:56 p.m. Dante looked at Vanessa. She was dabbing her dress, looking at the door again. Darling, Dante said, standing up. I need to use the restroom, then the toast. Hurry back, Vanessa said, checking her watch. It's almost time. Dante walked toward the restroom, passing Rocco. Get the car, he whispered, not breaking stride. Back exit, now. Trust no one. Rocco didn't blink. He tapped Silas and they moved. Dante didn't go to the restroom. He turned sharp left into the kitchen. The chefs froze. Ilara was standing by the dishwasher, trembling. Dante grabbed her arm. Is it true? 8:58 p.m. Ilara gasped. Lorenzo, they're coming at 9:00. You have to go. Dante's face went pale, then dark, with a rage that could burn cities. Come with me. What? If you stay, they'll kill you for warning me. You're in this now. He dragged her toward the loading dock just as the front of the restaurant exploded in a hail of automatic gunfire. The sound was deafening. Glass-shattered screams erupted, and the heavy thud of heavy-caliber bullets tore through the mahogany walls of the dining room. Go, go! Dante shoved Ilara through the heavy metal rear door into the alleyway. The cool night air hit them, smelling of garbage and rain. Rocco had the black SUV idling the back door already open. Silas was providing cover fire from the kitchen doorway, his handgun barking in controlled bursts. Boss, we're compromised, Silas yelled, taking a bullet to the shoulder. He fell back, gritting his teeth. Dante didn't hesitate. He shoved Ilara into the back seat and dove in after her. Silas, get in! Silas scrambled into the passenger seat, blood soaking his grey suit. Rocco floored the accelerator before the door was even closed. The tires screeched burning rubber against the wet asphalt as the heavy vehicle fishtailed out of the alley. Two black sedans swerved around the corner, blocking the exit. Ram them, Dante commanded. Rocco, a veteran of the desert wars before he joined the family, didn't flinch. He squared the SUV and hammered the gas. The collision was bone-jarring. Metal crunched airbags deployed in the enemy sedan, and the SUV plowed through scraping sparks against the brick wall. Ilara was thrown against the leather seat, gasping for air. She was a waitress. She served pasta. She didn't do car chases. "Keep your head down." Dante pushed her head toward her knees. He pulled a polished 9mm from his holster, clicking the safety off. "Who are you?" he demanded, scanning the rear window as gunfire erupted behind them. "Ilara," she squeaked. "Just Ilara. Well, just Ilara, you just saved the head of the Moretti family. If we survive the next 10 minutes, I'll buy you a fucking island. If we don't, I'm sorry." The chase spilled onto the Brooklyn-Queens expressway. Traffic was light, which was bad. It gave the pursuers a clear line of sight. "They're gaining on us, boss!" Rocco shouted. 3 cars, they have ARs. Bullets pinged off the bulletproof glass of the SUV like hail. Spiderwebs of cracks began to form. "Vanessa." Dante muttered the name, tasting like ash in his mouth. "She sold me to Ricci. The merger was a lie." He looked at Ilara. She was curled in a ball, but she wasn't crying. She was watching the road. "Take the next exit," Ilara suddenly shouted. "What?" Rocco yelled. "Exit 24. "The industrial park," she yelled louder. "There's a construction site under the bridge. The ramp is out. Their cars sit low. We have clearance. They don't—" Dante looked at her surprised. "Do it, Rocco!" Rocco swerved across 3 lanes, cutting off a semi-truck that blared its horn. The SUV took the exit ramp at 80 miles an hour. The 3 pursuing sedans followed their engines roaring. "There!" Ilara pointed to a chain-link fence with a "Danger Bridge Out" sign. "Go through the fence!" "Are you crazy?" Rocco shouted. "Trust her," Dante ordered. The SUV smashed through the fence. The road turned into a chaotic mess of gravel, rebar, and mud. The SUV bucked and bounced its suspension, groaning, but it kept moving. Behind them, the first sleek sports sedan hit the gravel. Its low spoiler caught on a chunk of concrete. The front axle snapped with a sickening crack and the car flipped, blocking the path for the 2 behind it. Rocco drifted the SUV around a pile of steel beams and shot out the other side onto a service road. The pursuit was gone. Silence filled the car, broken only by Silas's labored breathing and the hum of the engine. Dante holstered his gun. He looked at Ilara properly for the first time. Her uniform was torn, her hair was a mess, and she had grease on her cheek, but her eyes were steady. "How did you know about the construction site?" Dante asked. "I take the bus," Ilara said, her voice shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "The route changed last week because of the construction. I pay attention." Dante leaned back, exhaling a long breath. He pulled out his phone. No signal. A jammer, or maybe just the location. "Vanessa thinks I'm dead," Dante said quietly. "Ricci will move on my territories tonight. My accounts will be frozen. My safe houses will be watched." He looked at Rocco. "We can't go to the mansion. We can't go to the penthouse." "Where do we go, boss?" Rocco asked, his eyes on the rearview mirror. Dante looked at Ilara. "You said you have a brother in Ohio. You're not from the city originally." "No," she whispered. "Do you have a place, somewhere off the books? Somewhere a man like me wouldn't be caught dead?" Ilara hesitated, bringing the devil into her sanctuary. It was madness, but she remembered the look in Vanessa's eyes, the cold, predatory evil. She remembered the tip Dante gave her when she was short on rent. "I have a studio apartment in Queens," she said. "It's above a laundromat. The walls are thin. The heater is broken." Dante Moretti, the man who owned half of Manhattan's skyline, nodded. "Sounds perfect. Take us there." As the SUV merged back into the shadowed streets of Queens, Dante pulled the crumpled note from his pocket. He smoothed it out on his knee. The ink was smeared with wine. The war had started, but thanks to the girl with the receipt pad, he was still alive to fight it. The apartment smelled of lavender detergent and stale ramen. It was a fourth-floor walk-up in a brick building that had seen better decades, located on a noisy street in Astoria, Queens. The neon sign of the Lucky Dragon laundromat below buzzed with an incessant electric hum that vibrated through the floorboards. Dante Moretti, a man accustomed to 800-thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets and penthouses overlooking Central Park, stood awkwardly in the center of the 300-square-foot studio. He looked like a panther trapped in a shoebox. His tuxedo shirt was stained with wine and blood, the cufflinks hanging loose. On the cheap futon, Silas was groaning. His face was grey, a sheen of cold sweat covering his skin. The bullet was lodged in his deltoid, dangerously close to the bone. "I need whiskey, a knife, and a lighter," Rocco barked, ripping the sleeve of Silas's jacket. The big man was in combat mode, his eyes scanning the tiny room for threats that weren't there. Ilara didn't flinch. She moved with a practical, frantic energy. She went to a small cabinet above the rusted sink. "I don't have whiskey," she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "I have rubbing alcohol, and I have lidocaine." Dante turned his head, his dark eyes narrowing. "Lidocaine," my brother Ilara said, shortly tossing a plastic bottle to Rocco. "He has treatments. I have supplies." She pulled a first aid kit from under the sink. It wasn't a standard store-bought box. It was a professional-grade trauma kit. She laid out gauze surgical scissors and a pair of forceps on the wobbly coffee table. Dante watched her. "You're full of surprises, Ilara." "Poverty requires preparation, Mr. Moretti." She replied, not looking at him. She was focused on Silas. "Rocco, hold him down. This is going to hurt." For the next 20 minutes, the studio apartment turned into a field hospital. Ilara didn't perform the surgery. Rocco did that with the grim efficiency of a soldier, but she assisted. She wiped away the blood. She held the flashlight steady when the overhead bulb flickered, and she bandaged the wound with tight professional wraps. When it was over, Silas passed out from the pain and exhaustion. Rocco sat on the floor, cleaning the blood off his hands with a wet rag. Dante walked to the window, peering through the blinds. Down on the street, a police cruiser rolled by, lights off. He held his breath until it passed. "They'll be checking the hospitals," Dante said low. "They'll be checking my known associates. Vanessa knows everything. She knows the codes, the safe houses, the bank accounts." He turned to Ilara. She was washing her hands in the sink, scrubbing the red stains from her pale skin. "Why?" Dante asked. She stopped scrubbing. "Why what? Why did you save me? You could have walked away. You could have let the bad man die." Ilara turned off the tap. She dried her hands on a rough towel. She walked over to a small framed photo on the dresser. It showed a teenage boy in a wheelchair, smiling next to a younger Ilara. "That's Leo," she said softly. "He has a degenerative muscular condition. The insurance stopped paying 2 years ago. The medication costs $4,000 a month." Dante listened, his face unreadable. "I work double shifts at Le Veau d'Or," she continued. "I work breakfast at a diner on 5th, and I still barely make rent. I saved you because I saw Vanessa's face. I know what people look like when they enjoy hurting others. You're a criminal, Dante. I know that. But when I dropped a tray last month, you helped me pick it up. You looked at me like a person, not furniture." She looked him in the eye. "I figured the devil I know is better than the devil I don't." Dante felt a strange sensation in his chest. It wasn't adrenaline. It was something he hadn't felt in years. Respect. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a money clip. It was thick with $100 bills. He tossed it onto the table. "There's $5,000 there. It's yours." Ilara looked at the money. then back at him. "I didn't do it for money." "Take it," Dante commanded, his voice hard. "I don't accept charity. And I don't accept bribes." She shot back her chin, lifting defiantly. "I helped you because it was right. Keep your blood money. You're going to need it more than I do if you want to survive, Vanessa Sterling." Rocco chuckled from the floor. "Boss, I think she's got more balls than half your capos." Dante stared at her, the tension in the room thick enough to choke on. Then a ghost of a smile touched his lips. He picked up the money clip and put it back in his pocket. "Fine," Dante said. "But we have a problem. Vanessa has the keys to the kingdom. She'll freeze my personal assets by morning. She'll put a bounty on my head that will make every street thug in New York look for me." He walked over to the small TV in the corner and turned it on, keeping the volume low. CNN breaking news. The headline flashed in red: "Gangland shootout at upscale Manhattan restaurant. 3 dead. Crime boss Dante Moretti, missing presumed dead." The screen showed footage of Levaudor surrounded by yellow tape. Body bags were being wheeled out. "Presumed dead," Dante mused. "That buys us time. 24 hours, maybe 48, before they realize they didn't find my body." "What do we do?" Rocco asked, standing up and checking his weapon. "We have 3 mags of ammo and no car." "We go on the offensive," Dante said, his eyes cold. "But I can't walk the streets. My face is on every news channel." He looked at Ilara. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt, now looking small and fragile against the harsh reality of her situation. "I need a ghost," Dante said. "Someone nobody knows. Someone who can walk into the lion's den and walk out without triggering the alarms." Ilara took a step back. "Me no. No way. I serve wine. I don't do Mafia stuff." Dante stepped closer to her, invading her personal space. He smelled of rain, expensive cologne, and danger. "You're already involved, Ilara. If Vanessa finds out you warned me, she won't just kill you. She'll find Leo." The mention of her brother hit her like a physical blow. Ilara's eyes widened in horror. "I can protect him," Dante promised, his voice dropping to a seductive, dangerous whisper. "I can move him to a private clinic in Zurich. Best doctors in the world. Fully paid for. For life." Ilara swallowed hard. It was the offer of a lifetime. It was the answer to every prayer she had ever whispered to the ceiling of this crummy apartment. "What do I have to do?" she whispered. Dante smiled, but it was a wolf's smile. "I have a safe deposit box. Not at a bank. At a private vault in the Diamond District. It requires a retinal scan, which I can't provide, and a physical key. I have the key." He tapped his signet ring. He twisted the top of the gold ring and it popped open. Inside was a tiny, intricate micro key. "But the retinal scan?" Ilara asked. "The system has a back door," Dante explained. "My father built it, a manual override code. But you have to input it physically at the terminal inside the vault room. If you mess it up, the doors lock, and the NYPD is called automatically. And if I succeed, you bring me the black ledger inside. It contains the dirt on every politician, judge, and rival boss in the city, including Vanessa's father. It's the nuclear option. With that book, I can crush the coup before it starts." Ilara looked at the ring, then at Leo's picture. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." The morning sun hit the glass facade of the Sterling Moretti penthouse, but inside the atmosphere was freezing. Vanessa Sterling stood on the balcony overlooking the city she intended to rule. She wore a silk robe that cost more than Ilara's entire education. In her hand was a glass of mimosa, but her knuckles were white. Lorenzo the Viper, Ricci, sat on Dante's leather sofa, cleaning a jagged combat knife with a napkin. He was a terrifying man, scarred bald, and missing half of his left ear from a knife fight in the 90s. You said he was dead, Vanessa hissed, turning to face him. You said your men riddled the car. We found the car, Lorenzo said, his voice like gravel grinding together. Abandoned in a construction site in Queens. Blood on the seats, but no bodies. If Dante is alive, he's coming for us, Vanessa said, pacing. He's not a man who forgives. You know what he did to the Russian syndicate when they touched his sister. He has no resources, Lorenzo shrugged. You froze the accounts. His capos are either dead or switching sides to us. He's a king without a castle. He has the ledger, Vanessa said, her eyes snapping with fear. If he gets to the ledger, he burns us all. The ledger is in the vault, Lorenzo laughed. He can't get into the Diamond District. We have spotters on every block. If he shows his face, we peel it off. Vanessa wasn't convinced. She walked to the desk, Dante's desk, and picked up a file. It was the employee list from Le Veau d'Or. The waitress, she murmured. The one who spilled the wine. She disappeared, too. Lorenzo looked up. A civilian? She probably ran home to cry. Or she warned him, Vanessa said, her eyes narrowing. She picked up a pen and circled a name. Ilara Vance. Find her. Find her family. If Dante is using her as a shield, we'll use her as bait. Midtown Manhattan, 11:30 a.m. Ilara felt like she was wearing a costume. She was dressed in a sharp, charcoal grey pantsuit that belonged to her neighbour, a paralegal who was roughly the same size. She wore dark sunglasses and had pulled her hair into a sleek, severe ponytail. In her ear, she wore a tiny Bluetooth earpiece connected to a burner phone in her pocket. Walk confidently, Dante's voice buzzed in her ear. You belong there. You are Ilara Rossi, a private attorney representing the estate of a deceased client. Shoulders back. Ilara adjusted her grip on the leather briefcase also borrowed. She was standing in front of the Aurelius Trust, a fortress of marble and brass in the heart of the Diamond District. I'm sweating, Dante, she whispered, pretending to adjust her sunglasses. Good. It keeps you alert. Remember, walk past the front desk. Go straight to the private elevators. Use the key card I gave you. Dante was sitting in a rusted van parked 3 blocks away. Rocco had acquired the vehicle from a plumber earlier that morning. They were watching the street feeds on a laptop Dante had hacked into using the credentials he kept memorized. Ilara pushed through the revolving doors. The air conditioning hit her, cooling the sweat on her neck. The lobby was silent, echoing with the footsteps of serious men carrying serious money. She walked past the armed guards. They glanced at her, scanning for threats. A young woman in a suit, invisible. She reached the elevator bank. She swiped the white plastic card Dante had given her. The light turned green. Ding. I'm in the elevator, she whispered. Basement level 2. Dante guided her. When the doors open, there will be a desk with a biometric scanner. The guard's name is Arthur. He's old school. He likes the Knicks. Distract him. The doors opened. The air here was cooler, smelling of old paper and steel. Arthur, a heavy-set man in a uniform, looked up from a crossword puzzle. Help you, miss. Hi, Arthur, Ilara said, flashing a bright, disarming smile. I'm here for box 404, estate management. I need a thumbprint and a retina scan, Arthur said, bored. Actually, Ilara leaned in, lowering her voice. My client, he had a bit of an accident. Closed casket. No eyes left to scan, if you know what I mean. Arthur grimaced. Jesus. I have the master override authorization, she said, pulling a forged document from her briefcase. It was a bluff, a piece of paper with a fancy letterhead Dante had printed at the laundromat's office center. And, she added, I heard you might be the man to talk to about Knicks tickets. My firm has a box and we can't use it this Sunday." Arthur's eyes lit up. "Is that so?" While Arthur looked at the fake paper dreaming of courtside seats, Ilara moved to the keypad. "Code," Dante said in her ear. 3791 pound star. Ilara's fingers flew. Beep, 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 click. The heavy steel gate buzzed. "You're good to go, miss," Arthur said, handing back the paper, not looking at it closely. "Enjoy the vault." Ilara walked through the gate. She was in a corridor lined with thousands of steel drawers. "Box 404, she muttered. "Row F." She found it. She inserted the micro key from Dante's ring. She turned it. The lock tumbled. She pulled the drawer open. Inside there was no money, no diamonds, just a thick, black, leather-bound notebook and a flash drive. "I got it," she whispered. "Get out." "Now." Dante's voice was urgent. "We just picked up chatter on the police scanner. A silent alarm was triggered." "What I thought you said the code worked. The code worked for the door, but opening the box, Vanessa must have flagged it remotely." "Run Ilara." Ilara shoved the book and drive into her briefcase. She spun around and froze. At the end of the hallway, the elevator doors opened. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. They weren't security guards. They wore earpieces and moved with the predatory grace of hitmen. "There she is," one of them said, raising a silenced pistol. "Dante!" Ilara screamed into the mic. "They're here! The fire alarm!" Dante shouted. "Pull the lever to your left." Ilara threw herself against the wall, grabbing the red handle and yanking it down. Weep, weep, weep. Strobe lights flashed. The halon gas system engaged, filling the room with a white fog intended to suppress fire without damaging the paper money. It was like a smoke bomb. "I can't see!" the hitman yelled. Ilara dropped to her knees, crawling under the fog. She didn't go back to the elevator. She scrambled toward the emergency stairs at the far end of the hall. Bullets zipped through the air above her, sparking against the steel lockers. She burst through the stairwell door, her lungs burning. "Stairs!" she gasped. "I'm in the stairs." "Don't go to the lobby," Dante commanded. "They'll be waiting. Go down. Sub-basement 3, the subway tunnels." "The subway?" "There's an old maintenance access. It leads to the F train track. Break the lock. Run!" Ilara ran down the concrete spiraling stairs, the sound of heavy boots clanging on the metal steps above her. She was being hunted. She reached the bottom door. It was chained. "It's locked!" she cried, shaking the chains. "Shoot it!" Dante yelled. "I don't have a gun. Use the fire extinguisher." Ilara grabbed the heavy red canister from the wall. With a primal scream of adrenaline, she smashed it against the rusted padlock. Once, twice. The metal snapped. She kicked the door open and stumbled into the darkness of the subway tunnel. The smell of ozone and rat droppings hit her. In the distance, she saw the headlights of an approaching train. "I'm on the tracks," she sobbed. "Stay close to the wall," Dante said, his voice surprisingly calm now. "Walk north. We are at the 47th 50th Street station. We're coming down to get you." Ilara hugged the grimy wall as the F train roared past, a blur of silver and light, the wind whipping her hair across her face. She was alive. She had the book. But as she walked into the darkness, she realized something. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was an accomplice, and she liked the rush. The subway station at 47th 50th Street was a cavern of grime and noise. Dante stood at the edge of the service platform, his flashlight cutting through the gloom of the tunnel. "There!" Rocco shouted, pointing. A silhouette stumbled out of the darkness, coughing, covered in soot and white chemical dust. Ilara looked like a ghost rising from a grave. She was clutching the briefcase to her chest as if it contained her own heart. Dante didn't wait. He jumped down onto the tracks, ignoring the lethal third rail, and grabbed her. He hauled her up onto the platform just as the tunnel lights flickered, signaling an incoming train. I got it. She wheezed, her legs collapsing under her. I got the book. Dante looked at her. Really looked at her. Her knees were bleeding. Her suit was ruined, and she was shaking uncontrollably. But she hadn't let go. He felt a surge of protectiveness, so fierce it almost frightened him. He pulled her into his chest, burying his face in her dusty hair. "You're crazy," he whispered into her ear. "You're absolutely crazy. We have to move." Silas grunted. He was leaning against a pillar, his face pale from blood loss. "Transit cops will be swarming this place in 2 minutes." They exited through a maintenance door that spilled them out into a back alley in Midtown. The van was waiting. The safe house, the Bronx. 2 hours later, they were in a defunct meatpacking warehouse in the South Bronx. It was cold, smelling of rust and old iron, but it was fortified. It belonged to an old associate of Dante's father, a man known only as the Butcher, who asked no questions and provided no answers. Ilara sat on a crate wrapped in a wool blanket, drinking cheap instant coffee. Dante stood under a single hanging light bulb, the black ledger open on a metal table. The book was a graveyard of secrets. "Look at this," Dante said, his voice low. He traced a line on the yellowed paper. "Vanessa didn't just betray me. She betrayed her own blood." Rocco leaned in. "What do you mean?" "Here, a payment to a freelance chemical engineer 3 years ago. The same week her father, Don Sterling, died of a heart attack." Dante looked up, his eyes hard. "She poisoned him. She killed her own father to take the throne early. If the other families find out she's a patricide," Rocco said, whistling low, "they'll skin her alive. It's the ultimate taboo." "Exactly." Dante slammed the book shut. "This is our weapon. We don't just threaten her money. We threaten her legitimacy. We send copies of this page to the 5 families. By tomorrow morning, she'll be at war with the entire city." Ilara watched them. "So it's over. We won." Dante walked over to her. He crouched down so he was eye level. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a heavy, charged silence between them. He reached out and gently wiped a smudge of grease from her cheek. "We won," Dante said softly. "You saved us, Ilara. I'm going to make sure you and Leo are set for life. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we burn Vanessa's kingdom to the ground." Ilara looked into his eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the attraction that had been simmering beneath the terror. He was a killer, yes, but he was also a man who would burn the world for his people. And for the last 6 hours, she had been his people. "Dante," she whispered. He leaned in. The kiss was tentative at first, a question asked in the dark. Then it deepened. It was a kiss of relief, of survival, of 2 people standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing they hadn't fallen. Suddenly, a shrill digital sound cut through the air. It wasn't Dante's phone. It wasn't Rocco's. It was Ilara's pocket. The burner phone Dante had given her. She pulled away, breathless, and grabbed the phone. "Who is calling this number? Nobody has this number." Dante's face went rigid. "Answer it. Put it on speaker." Ilara pressed the button. Her hand shook. "Hello. Hello, Ilara." The voice was smooth, cultured, and dripping with malice. It was Vanessa Sterling. Ilara felt the blood drain from her face. How did you get this number?" "My dear, I own the cell towers. I own the service provider. Did you really think a prepaid phone would hide you from me?" "What do you want?" Dante snarled, stepping closer to the phone. "Ah, Dante, still alive. How disappointing. But I'm not calling to chat with you. I'm calling to show Ilara something." The phone pinged. A video file had been sent. Ilara tapped the screen. The video opened. It was shaky footage shot in a dimly lit room. In the center of the frame was a wheelchair. In the wheelchair was a teenage boy. His face was bruised, his lips split, and there was duct tape over his mouth. A man, Lorenzo, was standing behind him, holding a gun to the boy's temple. "Leo!" Ilara screamed, dropping the phone. "No, no, please." She fell to her knees, sobbing. Dante picked up the phone. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "If you touch him," Dante said, his voice dropping to a demonic octave, "I will peel the skin from your bones while you are still conscious." Vanessa laughed softly on the other end. "Empty threats, my love. Here is the deal. You have something of mine. I have something of hers. Bring me the ledger. Tonight. 1:00 a.m. The Brooklyn Navy Yard, Dry Dock 4. "If I bring the book, you lose your leverage," Dante countered. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't," Vanessa purred. "But Ilara trusts you. Don't you, Ilara, ask him to save your brother. Ask the big bad wolf to give up his power for a crippled boy." "Don't hurt him," Ilara cried out. "We'll bring it. We'll bring the book. 1:00 a.m. Come alone, Dante. If I see Rocco or Silas, or any of your other stray dogs, Lorenzo pulls the trigger. The boy dies first. Then the girl. Then you." The line went dead. The silence in the warehouse was heavier than lead. Ilara looked up at Dante. Her eyes were red, pleading, desperate. "Please," she begged, grabbing his hand. "He's all I have. He's innocent. He doesn't know anything about this life." Dante looked at the ledger on the table. It was his leverage. It was the key to reclaiming his life, his empire, his revenge. Giving it up meant surrendering. It meant walking into a trap he likely wouldn't walk out of. He looked at Ilara. He saw the woman who had walked into a vault for him. He saw the woman who had warned him in the restaurant when she owed him nothing. He closed his eyes for a second, inhaling deeply. "Rocco," Dante said. "Yeah, boss. Load the guns." The rain in Brooklyn fell in sheets, cold and unrelenting. The Navy Yard was a graveyard of industry, filled with rusted cranes that looked like skeletal dinosaurs and massive empty warehouses that echoed with the sound of the storm. Dante drove the stolen van. He was alone in the front seat. In the back, hidden under a tarp and a pile of mechanics' tools, lay Rocco. He was armed with a sniper rifle, breathing through a tube to avoid making noise. Ilara sat in the passenger seat. She was silent. She held the black ledger in her lap. Her knuckles were white. "Listen to me," Dante said, his eyes on the rain-slicked road. "When we get there, you stay in the car until I see Leo. Do not move. Do not speak." "They're going to kill us, aren't they?" Ilara asked. Her voice wasn't hysterical anymore. It was hollow. "They're going to try," Dante said. "But I have a plan." "What plan?" "The kind that only works once." He turned the van into the entrance of Dry Dock 4. The headlights cut through the rain, illuminating a scene straight out of a nightmare. In the center of the vast, open concrete space, 3 black SUVs were parked in a semicircle. Their headlights were on, creating a blinding stage of light. Standing in the center was Vanessa. She wore a white trench coat, completely dry, holding a clear umbrella. Beside her stood Lorenzo, and next to him was Leo in his wheelchair. Leo looked terrified, soaking wet, shivering in the cold rain. Dante stopped the van 20 yards away. He killed the engine. "Stay here," he ordered Ilara. Dante stepped out into the rain. He wore his black suit, no coat. He held his hands up, showing he was unarmed. "I'm here, Vanessa," he shouted over the storm. "I see that," Vanessa called back, her voice amplified by the acoustics of the dock. "And where is my property?" "In the van. Bring it to me, and bring the girl. I want to see her face when she realizes she picked the wrong side. Dante walked back to the passenger door and opened it. He helped Ilara down. She clutched the book to her chest. "Walk with me," Dante whispered. "Trust me." They walked into the light. The rain plastered Ilara's hair to her skull. She saw Leo and let out a choked sob. "Leo," Leo tried to shout through the tape, his eyes wide with panic. "The book," Vanessa demanded, extending a gloved hand. Dante stepped in front of Ilara. "Let the boy go first. He rolls to the van. Then you get the book." Lorenzo pressed the gun harder into Leo's neck. "You're in no position to negotiate, Moretti." "I'm in the only position that matters," Dante said calmly, "because I'm the only one who knows the cipher." Vanessa paused. "What? The ledger?" Dante lied smoothly. "It's written in code, my father's code. Without the cipher key, it's just a book of random numbers. You can't read it. You can't use it to blackmail anyone." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She hadn't known that. She looked at the book in Ilara's hands. "And I assume," Vanessa smiled icily, "that you are going to give me the cipher. Let the boy go. Let Ilara drive him out of here. Then I stay. I'll decode the book for you. I'll sign over the territories. You get everything. The crown and the keys." Ilara grabbed Dante's arm. "No," she hissed. "Dante, no. It's the only way," he said, not looking at her. "Go." Vanessa considered it. She looked at Dante, defeated, wet, surrendering. It was everything she had ever wanted. "Fine." Vanessa waved her hand. "Lorenzo, release the cripple." Lorenzo shoved the wheelchair forward. The wheels skidded on the wet concrete. Leo rolled toward them, tears mixing with the rain on his face. Ilara ran to him. She ripped the tape off his mouth. "Leo, oh God, Leo!" "Ilara, they hurt me," he sobbed. "Get him in the van." Dante ordered, his voice cracking like a whip. "Now." Ilara pushed the wheelchair toward the van. She looked back at Dante. He was standing alone, facing 5 armed men, and the woman who wanted him dead. He looked like a statue of vengeance. She got Leo into the passenger side. She slammed the door. "Drive!" Dante yelled without turning around. Ilara climbed into the driver's seat. She put the key in the ignition, but she didn't turn it. She looked at the ledger which Dante had taken from her before she ran to Leo. He was holding it out to Vanessa. "Here," Dante said, walking forward. "Take it." Vanessa reached out, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Her fingers brushed the leather cover. Crack. The sound was sharp like a thunderclap, but it didn't come from the sky. Lorenzo's head snapped back. A spray of red mist erupted into the halo of the headlights. He crumpled to the ground, dead before he hit the wet concrete. Rocco. The shot had come from the back of the van. "It's a trap!" Vanessa screamed, diving behind a bodyguard. Chaos erupted. The bodyguards opened fire on Dante. Dante didn't run. He dropped to the ground, rolling toward a stack of shipping pallets for cover. He pulled a gun from an ankle holster, a backup weapon they hadn't checked for. "Kill him! Kill them all!" Vanessa shrieked. Bullets chewed up the concrete around Dante. He returned fire, dropping one guard with a shot to the knee and another to the chest. Inside the van, Ilara screamed as the windshield shattered. "Rocco!" she yelled. Rocco kicked the back doors open. "Get down!" He began firing the heavy sniper rifle from the hip, the booming reports echoing like cannon fire. Dante was pinned down. He was 10 feet from Vanessa, but there were 2 guards between them. He was out of ammo. He looked at the ledger lying in a puddle between them. Vanessa saw it too. She scrambled for it, desperate to secure her power. Dante saw his chance. He didn't go for the gun. He went for the woman. He lunged from behind the pallets, tackling Vanessa into the mud. They rolled, grappling. Vanessa was strong, fueled by rage. She clawed at his eyes, screaming. "You ruined everything!" she yelled, pulling a small pearl-handled pistol from her coat. Dante grabbed her wrist, twisting it. The gun fired into the air. "You did this to yourself!" Dante roared. He wrenched the gun from her hand. He stood up, pointing it at her. "Dante, wait!" It was Ilara. She had jumped out of the van. She was running toward them, ignoring the gunfire that had mostly ceased as Rocco eliminated the last guard. "Don't kill her," Ilara said, panting, standing in the rain. Dante looked at Vanessa, who was cowering in the mud, her white coat ruined. "She deserves it," Dante said, his finger tightening on the trigger. "She killed her father. She tried to kill you. If you kill her," Ilara said, her voice cutting through the storm, "you're just a gangster. You're just what she said you were. But if you let the families judge her, if you use the book, that's justice." Dante looked at Ilara. She was drenched, fierce, and moral. She was the only clean thing in his dirty world. He lowered the gun. Vanessa began to laugh, a low, hysterical cackle. "You're soft, Dante. That's why you'll never be king." She lunged for the gun on the ground. Bang! Dante didn't shoot. Vanessa stopped. She looked down. A red stain was spreading across her chest. She looked toward the van. Leo was sitting in the open door of the van. He was holding Rocco's spare handgun with shaking hands. The barrel was smoking. "Leave my sister alone," the boy whispered. Vanessa Sterling fell back into the mud, her eyes staring up at the rain-filled sky, seeing nothing. The Queen was dead. Dante looked at the boy, then at Ilara. Silence returned to the Navy Yard, broken only by the sound of sirens wailing in the distance. The sirens were no longer distant wails. They were screaming down the access road. Blue and red lights began to reflect off the wet pavement of the Navy Yard. "Rocco." Dante said, his voice calm amidst the wreckage. "Get the van. We leave the bodies. We take the book. We vanish." Rocco nodded, limping toward the driver's seat. Dante picked up the black ledger from the mud, wiping the grime from its cover. He looked at Ilara, who was trembling, holding Leo's hand in the back of the shattered vehicle. "It's over," Dante said, climbing in and sliding the door shut, sealing them off from the rain and the carnage. "The life you knew is gone. But I promise you, the one I give you next will be better." 3 months later, the sun set over Lake Como, turning the water into a sheet of hammered gold. The air smelled of jasmine and expensive cigars. On the terrace of a sprawling villa, Ilara Vance stood by the stone railing. She wasn't wearing a stained uniform anymore. She wore a silk dress that matched the deep blue of the lake, and on her finger sat a diamond that could have paid for the entire block she used to live on in Queens. She heard the rhythmic thump step of crutches behind her. "Look at me, Elle," Leo called out. She turned. Leo was moving across the terrace upright. His legs were braced, but he was walking. The clinic in Zurich, the one Dante had paid for in full, had performed miracles. "You're getting faster," she smiled, tears pricking her eyes. "Doctor says I'll be on a cane by Christmas," Leo grinned. "Dante promised to buy me a car when I can use the pedals." Dante stepped out onto the balcony, holding 2 glasses of vintage Pinot Noir. He looked different, lighter, though the dangerous edge was still there, buried under the bespoke linen suit. He handed a glass to Ilara. "To the future?" he asked. "To the past," she corrected him, clinking her glass against his. "And leaving it behind." The black ledger was locked in a vault in Switzerland. Dante hadn't needed to publish it. The mere rumor that he possessed it was enough to bring the other 4 families to their knees. Vanessa's territories had been absorbed. The war was over before it began. Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a small framed object. It was a crumpled wine-stained napkin preserved behind glass. "Your fiancé set a trap. Leave now." "I keep this on my desk," Dante said softly. reminds me that the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a gun or a book of secrets. What is it? Elara asked, leaning into him. Dante kissed her forehead, his hand resting on her waist. Loyalty. Found in the last place you look. Elara looked out at the water. She had walked into a restaurant, as a ghost, invisible and struggling. She had walked out a queen. I still owe you for that wine I spilled, she teased. Dante smiled the wolf finally at rest. Put it on my tab. And that is the story of Dante and Elara. In a world built on lies, a single honest act changed history. Elara Vance didn't just save a mob boss. She saved herself. It proves that sometimes the person serving the food is the most dangerous person in the room if you underestimate them. Did you see that twist coming with the brother? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, revenge, and romance, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share this video with a friend who loves a good Mafia drama, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss the next part of our storytelling saga. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know who's watching.